MLS Aces episode 208. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, and I am joined by two very bearded men. This is a very big beard episode, so that's why Jason isn't here today. But Vaughn, it's been a few weeks. You're looking good in that brand new Charlotte FC kit. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be back, and it's been killing me to not be talking about MLS Cup, the playoffs. Congratulations, Tom.
Thank you.
Going through the title, and then everything with Charlotte FC, which I know we'll dig into some here. So yeah, I'm pumped to be back, guys.
Yeah, for everyone who's been missing Vaughn, right? Who hasn't seen Vaughn, he has been doing a lot of Charlotte FC coverage, a lot of Charlotte FC talk, Mint City Collective, right? You've been doing it all. We'll get to what you've been doing in a little bit, but I am also joined by another bearded fellow that took a sip of a nice looking beer, Uncle Sam Nelson. Sam, How are you, bud?
Hey, I'm good. It was a good beer, and I'm ready to talk some good soccer.
All right. Well, first things first, we always have to mention this because we are ever so grateful that the MLS Aces podcast is brought to you guys by soccer90.com. You guys can give the gift of soccer this holiday season. You can shop soccer90.com and find the perfect gift for your soccer loving loved ones, whether that's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, husband, son, daughter, whoever loves soccer. Go to soccer90.com and get them a fantastic gift. From MLS, the U.S. national teams, and international club gear, it is all available on their website. If you can't decide what to get them, then get them a Soccer 90 gift card and let them pick out what they want for this Christmas, for this holiday season. MLS Aces listeners, you guys listening right now, or watching live, or whatever you're doing right now, however you're supporting us, you guys can receive a 25% off discount at checkout when you use promo code MLS Aces on soccer90.com. Again, that's promo code MLS Aces, MLSAces. So thank you to Soccer90 for sponsoring this episode of the MLS Aces podcast. And let's talk about that very same Major League Soccer that Soccer90 is doing a great job in promoting on the gear side of things. So Vaughn, we kind of teased it a little bit. You've been doing a lot by chatting, Charlotte FC. I feel like nonstop. I've seen you all over Twitter and all over kind of podcasts and live streams and everything like that. You actually went to, I forgot the name of the stadium that Charlotte FC is playing in, but you went to the stadium to cover the expansion draft live. I want to hear about that experience first, like going there, recording a podcast live in a sweet ass looking studio. Like, how was all of that?
It was pretty cool. Yeah, I got invited onto the Mint City Soccer Show. I think that's what they call it. I don't know. But yeah, Mint City Collective. There's a couple of really great guys that are the leadership of Mint City Collective, I guess the largest supporters group for Charlotte FC. And they started, to try and have content and provide things for members, the Mint City Soccer Show. So I've had a good relationship with those guys. David Gussler, he's the president. Matt Swift, he's the comms director. And they invited me on as an MLS expert and got to participate in that. So part of the renovations that have happened at Bank of America Stadium, they put in these field level bunker suites, which is where, like, if you watch the expansion draft, that's where all the fans were standing, where it was in the bunker suites. And then, like, behind that, there's like a little bar area and then like suites, like corporate suites. So we got set up in one of those and got to do a live. Well, we weren't able to do live because, like, broadcast partners and stuff. Like, we couldn't do it during the draft, but like just before the draft, we were giving some of our thoughts. Then right after the draft, we're getting members from the team. We had Bobby Belair, who's the director of player personnel, as well as Nick Kelly, who's Charlotte FC president. They came onto the podcast, and we got to get their takes and reactions and off the cuff responses to our questions right after the expansion draft. I mean, it was really surreal. And I was fortunate enough. I went on the field. I had the local TV station, giving me a little interview on the field, and ESPN getting to talk to them for some print media. So yeah, it was a whirlwind of an evening and something I will not soon forget.
So you're turning into a mini celebrity around Charlotte, is what I'm hearing.
I'm just buzzing around. I'm just like soaking it up as much as I can, right? Like for me, that's what's fun right now, is getting to experience an expansion club in a totally new way, right? Like I'm well immersed in it. And so sometimes I'm trying to celebrate as a fan. Sometimes I'm trying to celebrate as a member of a supporters group. Sometimes it's trying to get media credentials and experience those things. So I'm just trying to have my cake and eat it too.
Well, definitely, if you ever do anything media, go through a Mint City Collective and not us, because you're not going to get it through us. Because I've tried plenty of times, just letting you know that. But I want to quickly talk about the expansion draft. Sam, I, and Jason. That's not a correct sentence, but you get it. We, the three of us, last week talked about the expansion draft, the picks, our thoughts, everything like that. Mackenzie Gaines, Anton Walks, Joseph Mora, Tristan Blackman, and Ishmael Tajori-Shradi all selected. Obviously, Blackman and Tajori-Shradi traded away. What were your initial thoughts? I know we were kind of chatting a little bit that you had a list of 7,000 opportunities that could happen or possibilities that could happen coming out of this draft. First of all, I got to hear about that a little bit more, and I think the listeners should hear about that too.
Oh, well, once again, I'm diving in deep, right? So I had my spreadsheet. I did my homework, probably more than I needed to do. And I was breaking down, every guy that's out of contract, every guy that had an option declined. I'm doing my own list of who I think is going to be protected, not protected, good value picks, all that jazz. So yeah, I had my initial 5 that I was kind of eyeing, but it's a crapshoot. Right. For me, I straight up off the top was if they're out of contract or option declined, I'm not even going to consider them because I'm not privy to what the team is conversing behind closed doors with agents and things like that. So I just totally crossed all of them off my list. So Joseph Mora never would have been on my list. So, I ultimately I got 2 of the 5 right, and that felt like a win.
That's not bad. That's honestly
a good number
at all.
I took it. So yeah, two out of 5, and they were the 2 that aren't on the squad now. Tristan Blackman and Ishmael Tajori-Shradi.
Well, can we start with them? Because I think last week, Sam, and correct me if I'm wrong, we all 3 of us agreed. You, I, and Jason, all of that,
You, I, and Jason.
We agreed that I think obviously maybe the most 2 talented players are no longer on your roster, right? Blackman and Ishmael Tajori-Shradi. I think 2 guys who I would really like to see maybe a new club begin their careers around, or begin the MLS club's career around. But obviously almost getting $1 million in general allocation money is also a nice trade-off. As a fan, as someone who is close to the city of Charlotte and Charlotte FC, do you like, I guess, the exchange that they got, or would you have rather seen 1 kept and something like that? I guess, are you okay with the outcome of trading away Blackman and Tajori-Shradi and keeping the other 3?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you can't judge the success of an expansion draft off of what they do immediately, right? It's when you look back on the draft 3 years from now and you say, hey, what did the team actually end up netting from this whole thing, right? Everybody's heralded LAFC's draft because they were able to flip 2 of their guys for a starting center back in Lawrence Simon. They got Latif Blessing, who's one of 2 guys that's still on the roster, and they got their starting goalkeeper who led them to a supporter shield that then they were able to trade for another $200,000 of allocation money, right? Yeah. Pretty good return on those 5 picks. For Charlotte FC, where I think that they have a really good basis, is they have 2 guys who out of the gate should be starters, right? I expect Mora and Walks to get considerable minutes. They are going to be a part of Miguel Angel Ramirez's rotation, undoubtedly. So that's a good starting point. And then, nearly $1 million of allocation money. I'm going to be judging them off of what they acquire with those funds. But at the end of the day, right, we talked about Tyler Miller, great. You got a starter for 2 years, and then you flip that for $200,000 of allocation money. Charlotte FC has, what is it, over $850,000 of allocation money from these 2 picks? Wow. A lot. So that's a great start. But I'm going to have to see what they do with it long term to really evaluate and say, hey, this was a great draft in retrospect, which is why on my grade, I gave them a B+ that could very quickly elevate to an A+.
And look, I mean, I can agree with that. I think a lot of what comes out of an expansion draft, especially the modern day expansion drafts with Major League Soccer, a lot of it is just solely based off value, the value you get for players that day, or like you said, Vaughn, value you get kind of a few years down the line. So let's talk a little bit about the roster construction right now for Charlotte. And for listeners listening right now, this is going to be a very Charlotte FC heavy episode. Charlotte's probably taken the most storylines right now of the MLS offseason just because they've been doing a lot, right? Adding a lot of notable names, making a lot of trades for international spots and allocation money and whatever it may be. So, Vaughn, when I look at this roster right now, and Sam, cut in if you have any Charlotte FC opinions as well. Right now, the defense seems the most built out of any part of this entire roster, right? Obviously, you can just count roster spots, count who plays defense, and there's more defenders on this roster than anywhere else. But there seems to be a decent mix right now of guys who are MLS veterans and know the league, and guys who I think have potential upside, who are maybe coming from other leagues from around the world, who maybe are going to take some time to learn the league and adjust to the league, but enough of those quote unquote MLS guys who I think can carry you a little bit along the way. Right now, I like where the defense is, but again, someone closer to the situation, someone closer to the club. Do you like where the defense is sticking right now?
Yeah, the defense is fine. It's really going to boil down to I think one of the guys that is going under the radar a bit that I'm expecting to be a pretty key individual for that starting center back grouping is going to be Guzman Corujo. I think Guzman Corujo, Anton Walks, and Christian Fuchs are all going to be in the mix for the starting positions. I think they're, Miguel Angel Ramirez's system is based out of a 4-3-3. But looking at the roster build, I wouldn't be shocked if there's going to be times we see them come out in a back three. Whether that's a 3-4-3 or even something that looks a little bit more like a 3-5-2. I think we're going to see a little bit of fluid formations there. And I like the start of the spine. But right now, looking at the roster, the strength is not on the defensive line. It's in the midfield. Now, the guys and also the competition that they're building at different positions, right? Like, we don't know for sure that Sergio Ruiz is going to be with the team from first kick. I'm hopeful that he is. But between him, I'm sure we're going to talk about Alan Franco here in a second, Jordi Alcivar, and also Riley McGree. That's a really strong grouping. Do they have their Carles Gil? Do they have the guy that's going to be a creator in the midfield? I don't see that, but that's also not really a role that's needed in Miguel Angel Ramirez's system either. So I think what they are building and the depths and the layers that they're forming are a really, really good basis and foundation. And we're talking about where the roster's at. I think that there's still 4 to 5 starters that are still to come for this team. And a lot of DPs, a lot of U22s, and a lot of allocation money that's still on the table for them to build out the rest of this roster.
Well, if I'm correct right now, there's no DP currently on the roster?
Correct. I think Alan Franco in the future will classify as that, but he was brought in on loan. So that's really important for this first year is with him being on loan, his guaranteed contract's only for 1 year. So they're going to take whatever the loan fee is, whatever his salary is, and whatever the agent fees are, and that's his cap hit. So if they end up having like a $2 or $3 million buy option, that doesn't apply or count towards the cap hit. So for year one, Alan Franco is not going to be cash strapping the cap.
And then Vinicius Melo, the young striker that we talked about last week, he is a U22 initiative signing, correct?
Yep, and at his age, he'll hit the cap at 150.
Got it. Okay. So look, I mean, I feel very positive right now about where Charlotte is. Like, look, present day on December 22nd, I think right now they're building out a strong base. I do agree with you. It does seem like there are still a few starters away if we're going to talk about Charlotte in the same light that we're going to talk about some of the better expansion teams year one. But again, from not seeing them play a game, we've also had very high hopes for other expansion teams year one that have kind of crashed out of the gate. They look like they're in a decent spot. I mean, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but like they look like they have an idea of what they want to do, and that they're kind of going out and getting the job done, at least on paper right now.
Yeah, this team is set up really well so far, in my opinion. And I have a big feeling that, Vaughn, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but January is coming up real soon, and that's going to be a big, international window for most MLS teams, but especially a Charlotte team that's going to be looking for DPs. You definitely need a starting goaltender, maybe a big man up front. I don't know, and so this week is probably going to be a little quiet with the holidays, but January 1st, I expect Charlotte to ramp it up.
Yeah, what scares me a little bit is that 9 of their 10 international spots are spoken for. So it is really critical that they're supposed to have 2 to 3 guys that are close on securing their green cards, but with the new rules, that has to happen by first kick. So time is of the essence in clearing up those 2 or 3 international spots. And the plus side is they could still trade for more, right? Like I was talking about their allocation money position. So every team starts with the 1.625 million, but with being an expansion team, I think it's around $1 million. They don't publicize it anywhere, but they're somewhere around 2.5 to 2.6 mil. Yes, they spent 500,000 on the 2 that they already got from Nashville, but then they had the 2 trades for Tajori Shradi and Tristan Blackman. So on my math, they should still have 2.5 to 2.6 million GAM in the bank, and they still have the 2.8 million of DTAM available. So we're looking at some of these trades, right? Like a Lewis Morgan going for 1.2, 1.3. We saw Tim Parker in that $1 million range. I mean, they could absolutely find a starting winger. They could absolutely find a starting forward, somebody on those lines. Potentially another center back guy, all on domestic talent, all coming out of MLS. They still have the ability to pull off those trades, and they also still have the ability, if the going rate is 250,000 for international spots, they can buy about 3 or 4 more of them and still be in a pretty good position cash wise.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the nice thing is that you guys are aligned right now. That if you want to make an inter-MLS trade right now, like you look at the big name moves of, you named a few, right? Walker Zimmerman a few years ago, or even Sebastian Lletget this year, right? I know he went for a crazy amount of money, but that's just, I feel like, kind of where MLS intertrades are going now. You're spending over $1 million in GAM if you want a big name within Major League Soccer, which I like. It's exciting, right? It's making the movements interleague like fun, right? Like it's not like, oh, here's $50,000 for Pablo Cisniega. It happens. That's what the move was, but it's not exciting, except for when you see Lletget going back under his old head coach and all that fun stuff. But tell me about Alan Franco, Vaughn. Like you guys said, you got him on loan from Atlético Mineiro in Brazil. Last year, Atlanta United brought in their own Alan Franco. Good. I don't think he went to the levels that many people, even me picking him for Defensive Player of the Year, which was a crazy pick looking back at that now.
Really great.
I guess tell me about him. Is he going to be better than Atlanta's Alan Franco year 1? Or are we kind of going with the same case of he needs time to adjust, learn, travel, all that stuff that we see with a lot of guys coming in?
I mean, that's going to be the biggest question about the Charlotte FC roster, right? Like. I think there's a lot of people that are looking at them and saying, wow, there's a lot of international guys, and not all those guys come in and adjust to this league super fast, right? Sometimes freshman year is tough, and you really come into your own sophomore year. And right now, this entire roster from coaching staff all the way down is still pretty thin on that MLS experience, right? Like Jordi Reyna right now is the leading MLS goal scorer on this squad. So looking at the team and Alan Franco, I think Alan Franco is going to be an immediate starter. He was one of the 2 guys that was like an every game starter on Miguel Angel Ramirez's 2019 Sudamericana winning side at Independiente del Valle. It was him and Luis Segovia. Okay. So Alan Franco is going to be a big part of this team. And I think he's going to be huge in implementing that style quickly for Miguel Angel Ramirez. I think he's going to be very important for the team in that regard, in that he's going to be able to set that tempo. He's going to be able to set the expectation. He's going to be able to be an on-field coach to that system and style. And he's a guy that, once again, you're looking for value. he was starting to get pushed out at Atletico Mineiro because I think they also have some rules related to also international roster spots. So he was kind of in a tough position where they had to get him off the books. And Charlotte looks like they're stepping in and are saying, hey, we've got a great need for him. And you know, great. Let's take a guy from Serie A in Brazil. Right now, there's several of those guys that are coming over to MLS and are finding success quickly. So yeah, I'm excited about it personally.
And I think one of the moves I was super excited about from this past week was Harrison Afful. We sent a tweet back and forth to each other on this, but you know, Harrison Afful, again, I don't know if this was an overstatement in the tweet. I think he's arguably the best right back to ever play in Major League Soccer, ever, hands down. Like in his play in MLS, I give Harrison Afful a lot of respect, and I think especially under Greg Berhalter, he was very important in kind of Berhalter getting his style of play out there. An MLS Cup champion, a Campeones Cup champion with the crew, over 180 games played for the crew. And honestly, just an absolute baller. Like, I love Harrison Afful. It's just like a random name and a random player in Major League Soccer that I just think doesn't get the same respect that he deserves from around the league. But coming in at 35 years old, where do you see Afful coming in? I think he's probably your game one starter, but at his age, I don't know if he is the game in, game out starter. I know obviously Jalen Lindsey comes back home. He can play both fullback positions. He'll probably get some minutes behind Afful. Anton Fox can play right back too. I know you have some fluidity there. But I guess kind of what did you think of the Harrison Afful signing?
My initial reaction was that he is a fantastic rotational piece with Jalen Lindsey. Right? Like looking at Jalen Lindsey and Harrison Afful, both with where they are in their careers and with their injury histories and whatever, neither one of those guys is a 34-game starter. And in Miguel Angel Ramirez's system, he has a lot of player rotation, right? Like one of the things I think I'm really going to look forward to, because you guys know I'm a pretty big Sporting KC fan. Peter Vermes is not.
Oh man,
yeah. Peter Vermes is not known for his player rotation, right? Miguel Angel Ramirez is like the complete opposite. He's going to have most of his guys rotating in and out, bringing in youth, leaning on different guys at different times, lots of positional fluidity, lots of player versatility, right? That's one of the things I didn't mention about Alan Franco is his ability to play several different spots.
Everywhere.
Yeah, play everywhere. So like that's going to be huge for this team. And so Harrison Afful, the past 2-3 seasons, he's good for 1,800 minutes. Jalen Lindsey with his hamstring and his and his ACL and playing on turf is probably good for 1,000 to 1,500 minutes. So those two guys can get you to the required 3,000-ish minutes for a roster. So yeah, I think Harrison Afful still has more in the tank. I think he still is a quality right back. I think the team is really emphasizing pace and having guys that can have a little bit of motor. And for being 35, Harrison Afful still has a good motor on him. So yeah, I love it. I think he's going to be a great locker room presence. I think he's going to be somebody that, you know, for a team that right now is lacking some of that MLS experience, Harrison Afful has an awful lot of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having him on the roster.
Well, Vaughn, I won't make you talk any more Charlotte FC for the rest of the episode unless you want to. So, listeners, if you want,
I could go for hours. I could go for hours.
Well, I want to switch it up for you. I know you've been talking a lot of Charlotte. We'll expose you to some more other MLS content, other U.S. soccer content. And Sam, I want to dive into the next conversational piece because I know you're big on Play the Kids. I know you're big on, you know, kind of lower division soccer in the U.S. So this is something that kind of got, I feel like, a little lost in the news cycle and a little lost in the conversation because obviously MLS Cup was a few days after this announcement or a day after the announcement, whatever it was. But MLS Next Pro. So I chatted about this during the MLS Cup preview episode with Danny T Radio. And again, Danny T, thank you very much for coming on and chatting about MLS Cup and even, you know, MLS Next Pro. And I didn't tell you that it was going to happen. But MLS Next Pro is Major League Soccer's official, I guess, fully professional third division soccer league that is going to be starting next season, 2022. A lot of information I feel like came out, and then again, like super disappeared. You said, and I mean, I completely agree with you that this happened for a reason. I feel like Major League Soccer didn't want people prodding too much into it, but your initial thoughts on the announcement, your official thoughts on the league starting next season, I guess the inaugural clubs, all that jazz.
Yeah. Initial thought coming from someone who watches a lot of lower league soccer, follows all of them and talks to all those kinds of journalists. This is MLS's power grab, and it's a very smart move. MLS, it is. It's a power grab, and you know it's the third division in the U.S. soccer pyramid. Now we have like NPSL, UPSL, and now MLS Next Pro that we're all going to have to be like fighting over players for it. But one of them will have a lot more funding than the others. So, look, all things considered, other than that, I think it's a good idea. Like, it's important to have that kind of step. And, like, you know, NPSL, UPSL, they all were creating this great atmosphere for mostly really young, like, U23 talent. It was mostly amateur. And so now we're going to have a fully professional third division with – it'll mostly be youth players. Like, a lot of these guys, the academy players, before going to MLS are going to come through MLS Next Pro. And I mean, to be fair, MLS Next like has a lot of really good talent too. Like all the age groups are really good. There's if you follow them on Instagram, they're posting highlight reels all the time. They're really good kids. And so I think that's really cool. This is also if you want to get into it, Rochester is coming back to US soccer, which I think is really important. Honestly, they're not the Rhinos anymore. What are they? Rochester, New York FC or something?
It's New York Rochester FC.
Yep, the Jamie Vardy team, and that's how they market it.
FC. You had
that's
it
how
right.
They were going to market it. They're like, this team's owned by Jamie Vardy. Isn't that cool? So I don't know if Jamie Vardy was looking forward to a third division in the United States to put his ownership stake on, but yeah, well, it's like 20-something teams for next season plus the year after. We'll have Charlotte, Atlanta, DC, like. You know, both LA teams, and we'll kind of go from there. But it's a really good starting point, and they're going to start introducing new, independent teams like Rochester, who isn't owned by an MLS team. But for now, it's going to be a lot of MLS Academy guys, and soon I think, as we were talking about off air with the draft and stuff, I think there's going to be more placed into the draft because then these kids are going to be playing in MLS Next Pro if they're not quite ready for MLS. But they're going to be playing real valuable minutes instead of being the 23rd guy off the bench, like, you know, for DC one year who gets one game, 10 minutes at the end of that game. Like you're going to be playing 90 minutes week in, week out against other good competition. And so I like that a lot. And I just think this, outside of it being difficult with third divisions, is good for U.S. soccer, probably. I wince because I'm not quite sure. But like
the only thing that I want to throw in before Vaughn, I get to your point, is that if there's a listener out there that's saying, well, what's the difference if an MLS team signs an academy kid or signs a kid out of college and then loans them to the USL Championship? What's the difference? Well, USL clearly has been on a path the last 2 years of developing a USL Championship, USL League One, all this stuff. Clearly on the path for at some point promotion relegation to be within USL. It has been said by their president that it's an idea that's floating around, blah, 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 not getting into that. But I think Major League Soccer saw that as USL trying to, promote their game more, whatever. So MLS was like, let's take it back. Let's create our own league and let's create our own pattern, Sam, like you said, from MLS Next to MLS Next Pro up into the first division of Major League Soccer. So I think this is a little bit of kind of U.S. soccer wars coming back a little bit, which I'm not opposed to. I liked, WWE in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's not great, right? But it's
remember what happened to NASL? That's
RIP. Well,
MLS has money.
Nice is going down the shithole right now. But
yes, it is.
So just for listeners, again, I think it's 21 inaugural teams coming into USL Next Pro starting in 2022, with 8 teams confirmed for 2023. Rochester, Jamie Farney's Rochester side is going to be the only independent pro club right now, with opportunities for more to join. There's going to be a 24 game season. 8 teams make the playoffs, a League Cup final, and then they said there's going to be some other opportunities for additional cups and tournaments and playing internationally and all that stuff to happen. So, Vaughn, I guess we'll turn this to you. It's a good idea. I'm with Sam that I think it's a good idea. More soccer, more opportunities, I think is good. But what's your take on the whole league? And I guess, is this, at the end of the day, is this something you're happy to see from Major League Soccer?
I mean, what I like is that the league is emphasizing and forcing teams to spend in ways that are not just with the first team roster.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. They're creating more professional opportunities for more players. Now, the issue with that is you're going to potentially dilute the player pool. I think there's going to need to be this, fine balancing act between developing players and domestic talent still finding their way onto the first team rosters, right? Like there's going to be this like ebb and flow. But do I think that MLS is wrong to be trying to create their own controlled pathway? No, that's what every other major league in the world does. So if they're serious about, growing the sport here and MLS being the premier league and trying to be on level with the top, forget top 5, let's call it top 10 leagues in the world. This is a necessary step. And I think if USL had their model under control, you shouldn't be scared. You shouldn't be concerned. Like if you got the better mousetrap and you got more dollars and all that stuff, run with it. Like if you're the better path to pro and you're better at developing talent, the better players are going to follow to you. But if you can't compete on the dollars and you can't compete on the development, hey.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on that MLS is taking their own league, their own development, their own players into their own hands, because clearly with the top of USL, the top of MLS, there was fighting, there wasn't agreement, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, I don't think the MLS 2 teams in USL Championship or USL League One, outside of a select few, cared about the product on the field, where USL probably was like, we want quality product on the field, and Los Dos getting beat 7-1 to Phoenix Rising isn't great for TV ratings or isn't great for whatever, right? So I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a positive for both leagues, as long as USL doesn't try to go for Division 1 status. I really think that's where USL or US Soccer Wars could really try to kind of go down the shitter there, is if USL is like, we're going D1 too. That's where I feel like the money of Major League Soccer would take over a lot in that situation.
Well, I really don't think MLS is expanding beyond 30 anytime soon. Like if they're going to go, they might go to 32. I think that's going to be really the future. I would be shocked, and it could happen. They could go to 40. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I don't think that it would be healthy for MLS to go to 40. And so for USL right now, they're not going to have markets like Cincinnati that go boom gangbusters and then make the jump up to MLS. Right. So I think that they need to look for those markets that they're doing really successfally in certain ones. The Las Vegases. Granted, that's probably a touchy subject right now, but okay.
easy.
Sorry, let me scale that back. The Phoenixes, the New Mexico Uniteds, right? Like if they can, and Louisville, right? Take those markets that are underserved or aren't going to get to MLS level because of the market size and the market shares. Great. Own those, build those, and you're going to serve a real purpose for growing soccer in those communities that MLS will not be able to fill. And you're going to be able to provide player opportunities locally that MLS will not be able to provide. So if USL owns that and does that, I think it's going to be great for the US soccer ecosystem, right? Like I'm talking about diluting the player pool, but really what you're doing is you're creating more opportunities for players, but you're also creating more opportunities for coaches and other people in the sports science world and scouting, right? There's going to be talents that get seen and get minutes that currently aren't. That's a really good thing. You know, some guys, they don't hit their stride until they're 25, 26. Shoot, look at a Chris Wondolowski, right? Like, is the next Chris Wondolowski a guy that is playing in college that just, you know, doesn't make it yet? He's not quite there, and then steps away from the game because he didn't have professional minutes and opportunities. Sure, maybe. So great. Let's get more guys that are playing more.
It's super interesting because I'm a fan of kind of pretty much throw U.S. soccer in any form in my face and I'll watch it, whether that's MLS, USL, USL League One, NISA. Like, I'll watch it. Even if it's NISA reluctantly, I'll watch it. But it's crazy the amount of guys who have made the jump, let's just say, right, from USL League One to USL Championship, who have produced and who have done well. I can think of Connor Antley, right? Connor Antley was playing in USL League One, dominating, doing well, kind of came out of nowhere. I think he was working part-time at Chick-fil-A. Now he was playing last season as a starting right wing back for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And he just, you know, unfortunately, Tampa Bay just lost in the USL Cup final. But this is where he's at, a completely different career projection, right? And that's kind of what you're saying, Vaughn, is like, even if it's not the scale of Chris Wondolowski, it's guys who are solid soccer players getting an opportunity to prove themselves, develop, play more, even if they're 28, 29. Shoot, if I could play 3 years of professional soccer and call myself a former professional soccer player and do that for a few years and enjoy my life, I'd love it too. So I think it's all great, more opportunities for more players. I just want to see domestic players kind of get their shot, develop, come up. And I think with the USL academies, I think with MLS Next and everything like that, that's kind of on the trajectory and the path that we're on. And in kind of closing out the USL Next Pro
I got one more thing real quick.
Yes.
On USL, since we're still there, is the USL is also providing opportunities for these players who do want to move abroad, but know that MLS is going to shut them down, like Jonathan Gomez, who refused to sign a professional contract with FC Dallas because he knew that Dallas would hold on to him too long. Like guys like Wes McKinney who had to wait to go on a free, things like that. So like Jonathan Gomez goes to USL, where he's playing as a 18-year-old, 17-year-old last season, and now he's moved for $1 million that Louisville gets all of. That Louisville's not sharing with all of MLS the way that MLS is allocating their transfers, and so Louisville gets $1 million and a player for a season and a half who was very, very good, and now he's off in Spain doing his thing, and got that men's national team call up before he left. So I think USL still has like that place, and I think they're, like you guys were just saying, they're going to provide those opportunities for guys that MLS just might not be able to. I think that's very important.
Well, and also MLS needs to really also build up their player pool, because if they're selling more and more guys, right? Let's roll the clock back 3 years ago, right? Where was Tyler Adams, Alphonso Davies, Gianluca Busio, Richards, Reynolds, Tessman, right? Like, these are guys that were not on MLS squads 3 years ago. Or if they were, they were like in and
fringe guy. Yeah.
Right? So if MLS is building up this reputation of being a selling league and a place that these players are going to quickly move from academy, and you get professional minutes, right? Like, great, you're going to have 17, 18-year-old guys on professional contracts that can play and you can see their talent earlier against better competition.
Yeah.
Great. You're either going to get those guys moving up to MLS rosters faster, or you're going to be getting them transferred to Europe and South America faster. Yep. I don't see the negative to that.
There might be situations or opportunities, I don't really know the word I wanted to go for there, but where like, a club from overseas sees that, someone from North Texas SC is absolutely killing it in in MLS Next Pro, Jesus. But instead of waiting for that guy to go to the full MLS first team and then have to kind of go through that process, they're like, we're just going to grab him early. We'll grab him at 16. That's fine. Or grab him at 17. That's fine. Whatever it may be, right? So there's going to be those situations as well where clubs like Dallas, Red Bulls, Philly, who have that reputation of developing really good talent are going to start going younger and younger. And I think we've already seen that a little bit, but now it's all going to kind of be in-house. And Sam, to go off your point, MLS is definitely more structured. USL is definitely more fun as they're all independent clubs, and NISA is just absolutely insane.
We can stop talking about NISA. I don't want to think about them anymore.
I think that all of these leagues, all of these clubs have their place in U.S. soccer because we are such a large, interesting soccer country. And I think that, again, I really like USL. I'm a fan of USL. I will always follow USL the same way I will always follow MLS and where all these players go. I just would like to see a world where there may be a little bit more cohesive, work together, interact a little bit more, but I highly doubt it. As all of these leagues are kind of going for their own academies, going for their own lower divisions, and they're more senior divisions as well. But the thing I kind of wanted to stem off of is that U.S. Open Cup, it is set to return in 2022, and these MLS Next Pro clubs are going to participate in the 2022 U.S. Open Cup, which I think is very interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Barcelona B plays in the Copa del Rey or anything like that. Like I could be wrong about that, but Vaughn, I'll start with you. What's your opinion on these MLS 2 teams that will be competing in the U.S. Open Cup?
Are they going to be in the U.S. Open Cup? I thought I only saw St. Louis that was going to be in there.
So it is going to be.
I could be wrong.
I have it. I thought I saw like people freaking out, and yep. Oh, never mind. I'm wrong. I'm dumb. Ignore me, everyone. I just gave out false information on the podcast. I think
St. Louis, their MLS Next Pro team, is going to be in there because they don't have a squad yet.
And Rochester.
Yes.
So the independent MLS Next Pro clubs and anyone that doesn't have a senior MLS team will be competing. That was a dumb whoopsie on me. But still, MLS Next Pro starting next season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fun, right? But does it – so, like, I love the U.S. Open Cup. I love the traditional, like, inside your country cup system wherever you play, like, Football Manager fan, obviously. So I really like going on big cup runs and everything like that. But, like, does it just make it, like, that much more, like, confusing and muddled because it's, like, why does MLS, like, start so late in the tournament, and then USL Championship, they start just as much as the USL League One like teams start in the tournament? Like, does it just make it that much more like, just, I don't know. Is there a way where you can possibly have NISA, MLS Next Pro, USL League One, USL Championship, MLS, and then mind it, the amateur clubs that make it all kind of in a way where it's fair for these clubs to participate and make this a fun tournament again? I don't know, Sam. I know you're a USOC fan with me. So
yes.
What are your thoughts?
The answer is no. Absolutely, they absolutely can't do it. And that's we live in a really big country.
We do.
This is one of the biggest countries trying to have these national. Like, I don't know, Brazil is a really big country too. Let's say, but primarily, almost all of their teams play along the coast because the Amazon rain takes up most of the country. It's really, really hard. It's very expensive. I remember, when these amateur teams were coming up and they were making cup runs, and then you're starting these GoFundMes just to get these guys on a bus so that they can take off work for 2 days. Like, it's very difficult, and it's not designed to have these teams go that far. Like, realistically, like, it's not. It's designed so that maybe a second division team makes a final by accident. But it's at the end of the day, like, when's the last time we saw a team that wasn't an MLS team in a U.S. Open Cup final? Was it Rochester? Realistically,
I think it was the Rochester Rhinos. Yeah,
and that was 2002, like 2001, maybe.
2000.
So I don't know. It's been a while. And so, like, realistically, no, like, it's not ever going to be fair. I respect, as I was reading through the article, that U.S. Soccer at least has the rule that if a team is majority owned by a team in a higher division, they're not allowed to compete. I think that's good. So you aren't having all these 2 teams competing, and that will eventually give all the independent MLS Next Pro teams the ability to compete. So you will see St. Louis and you will see Rochester in it next year. The same goes for NISA. Like, if a NISA team for some reason was owned by an MLS team for some reason. It would be run better, first of all, but second of all, like they wouldn't get to play. But like I think that's fair. But otherwise, like these teams are run on very shoestring budgets, and it's very difficult for a team like Christos FC if they weren't drawn against DC United in that U.S. Open Cup. Like, could you imagine even a trip if they had to play Sporting Kansas City and had to go to the middle of the country on a Thursday night, like a bunch of beer league guys? Like, it's very hard. But that's the magic of the cup.
I think
right?
that comes down to the travel aspect of. I think we've said this before, Sam, that the larger division team should travel to the lower division team. I personally think, but then you have MLS guys
gotta have
on
other
high school fields.
Yep, that's the problem.
I don't know. Yeah,
so
that's the thing.
Yeah, the travel, the respect of the cup, the sanctity of the cup. Like there's a lot you have to work out, and it is difficult. But U.S. Soccer tries to keep it regional as much as possible. So like in that situation, like Christos wouldn't have played Kansas City; they would have played Philly or New York next before they played someone else. But they drew DC that time, so that's one thing. But like it's hard if your region isn't Maryland, Virginia, New York. It's hard if your region is Colorado, Wyoming, like, and Salt Lake City. Like, that's a much farther trip the more that you go west. So it gets a lot harder.
States get bigger over there, you know?
It just really, it expands. It's just this alarming rate. I don't really know what happened. Like, it's like we all of a sudden had space and didn't know what to do with
it. We got less creative as the country got bigger.
Notice there's a lot of squares when you get out west. There's a lot of squares, not cool things with rivers.
Vaughn, do you have any takes on the U.S. Open Cup? Because my mistake in this whole conversation, but please go for it.
No, I mean, you know, we're the nerdy guys that are going to watch U.S. Open Cup games no matter what, right?
Absolutely.
Like
100%.
I watch the feed of Charlotte Independence beating the New England Revolution, and there's 6 traveling fans that made the trip.
Yep.
I love those 6 fans.
I was at the game where the Charlotte Independence got slapped by Florida Soccer Soldiers and then signed the 17-year-old that owned them, right? Like, I've been there, right? I lived it. But I view the U.S. Open Cup like the family sourdough starter that's going to get handed down, right? Like, I'm going to live with it and deal with it now, right? But like, I care about the U.S. Open Cup continuing right now so that when we're gray and 60, like, it's going to have more weight, right? Like
I think that's totally right.
I need this sourdough starter to pass down a couple generations and mature a bit, and then it's going to carry some weight and really be something special. And it's already an old competition, but it's not the FA Cup. Right? Like there's going to come a time that if we keep this competition going, it will get to that point of carrying that weight when these franchises are 50, 60, 70-year-old franchises. And you've got these independent teams that are going on deep runs and the magic of the cup, right? I think it's kind of fabricated and forced right now. And so it's like, just keep the sourdough alive. Let's just get it so that it gets to the next generation. That's where I'm at with the U.S. Open Cup. I love it. I'm going to geek out over it. I'm going to look for those silly memories and hold on to them. But at the end of the day, I just want it around when I'm 60.
So,
I
Sam, we've had
sourdough started. That's good. That was a really good analogy. I love that.
We've had this conversation on the podcast before, Sam, of where you rank the U.S. Open Cup and your focus on MLS teams. In terms of where you rank the the U.S. Open Cup within trophies that you want to win in a season or you're focused on in a normal season.
So let's see. Let's say you're the best team in MLS. So you also have to go
MLS with an opportunity to play in every competition.
All right. So you have U.S. Open Cup, the league, which carries Supporter Shield and MLS Cup. If you're in Canada, you have the Canadian. I guess they don't count.
Campeones
Cup, because that's going to be a thing right next year, like Leagues Cup, and then CONCACAF Champions League. Okay, so
7 trophies, 6.
Where would I rank it, or where do I think these teams are ranking it?
Where would you personally rank it? Because we know where teams rank it. It goes down every year. Where would you rank the U.S. Open Cup If you could.
For me, for DC, like just because that's my team, I would put that number 2. I would say, like, realistically, like that's the biggest trophy like in U.S. soccer theoretically. I want to win MLS Cup first. Like every team wants to win MLS Cup first, but CCL is a crapshoot. Leagues Cup is probably going to be a crapshoot. Like, and those are all like one-off games, luck of the draw. The same with the U.S. Open Cup. But the U.S. Open Cup is like this nationwide competition, and like I was just talking about, it's very difficult. The regions and the national stage and everything. And to me, that's who I would want to win next. Like I would want, if DC's having a terrible year, put your boys on the field. I want to go to the final. Like let's do it. So that's for me. I would rank it number 2.
Okay, interesting. I wouldn't think 2, but interesting. Vaughn, where do you rank it among the 6 major trophies that an American MLS club can win?
Same thing, like Sporting KC, right? Like I've been there for an Open Cup victory.
Yep.
And to me at that time, that was like number 3, right? Like number 1 for me is MLS Cup, number 2 Supporters Shield, number 3 Open Cup, because right now it's not realistic to be going for a CCL. I don't think we're quite there, but that would be the pinnacle. That would be pretty high up there. I don't know where Leagues Cup plays in there. Are we counting Campeones Cup? We're not even joking about FIFA Club World Cup, right? Like those are all things.
We have to win CCL first.
Let's win CCL before we can include that in
right. So like that's what I'm saying. Is like
Liverpool.
it's my number 3, but it's my number 3 because it's only realistic number 3, right? Like
interesting.
But it's something you're guaranteed to be in every season too. Like you get that every year. Like you aren't guaranteed CCL every year. You aren't guaranteed. I guess you're guaranteed the Leagues Cup every year now, but like that's one you get the league, you get the Open Cup. Like those are your 2 that you're guaranteed to play in.
Well, and CCL would be crazy. Like if I'm realistic, right, like LAFC made the final and they were good enough to win it. Toronto made the final. They were close. So
I was going to say
I could say Open Cup is really number 4, but I'm also being realistic for like my clubs. Right, it's the same thing, right? If once you win MLS Cup, like you care about MLS Cup more than Supporters Shield, like whichever one comes first.
Yeah,
right. Like that's going to be the one that's your hierarchy. So like I've experienced an Open Cup victory, so. I'm going to say, hey, Open Cup means something, right?
You both said that CCL is unrealistic for an MLS team to win.
No, for our MLS team.
For our MLS teams to win.
Our teams are not that good for that. Like, and Vaughn's is way better than mine is. So, like,
well, like, I was a Royals fan, right? Like, I went 25 years where like they didn't make the playoffs. Right.
Yeah,
like,
and then they had to come in and kick my team's butt. Like, what the heck?
So, like making the playoffs, you know what this feels like.
Yeah,
making the playoffs feels like winning MLS Cup.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And then winning the World Series feels like I just won CCL.
That must be nice.
Right. Like, to me, that's the equation, like the relative comparison.
They're absolutely right.
And like Open Cup is like I won the division.
Yeah, that's fair. So like I had Open Cup 4th. I had CCL, MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, Open Cup, Leagues Cup, Campeones Cup. That was the 6 that I had listed out. And
well, see, your team's going to be in CCL next year, so that helps.
But just the large statement that I was going to make before you guys singled out CCL for your specific clubs, so that's fine. That's totally fine. I can agree and understand. Is that the narrative that MLS teams can't win CCL is complete bullshit at this point. Vaughn, you said it. LAFC and Toronto FC in the last 4 years have all been fully capable of winning and maybe should have won if Michael Bradley didn't sky a PK and LAFC played a little bit of defense after the 61st minute or 60th minute, whatever that goal was.
Not counting.
But no. it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So very odd conversation. I didn't think was going to come up this episode, but I'm happy it did.
It's a good one.
Let's finish up this episode by talking about a few moves. If you guys have a move you want to talk about on this list, we can. If you don't have a move that you want to talk about, that's fine. We don't have to. But I think one that we should all kind of jointly talk about that I found super interesting was Steve Clark. So yesterday, Portland Timbers goalkeeper, or former Portland Timbers goalkeeper at this point, Steve Clark, announced on Instagram that he was leaving Portland. It was a tough decision. He's been in Portland for a while now. And then it was announced today, I think Tom Bogert was the first one to drop the news that Steve Clark had signed with the Houston Dynamo as a free agent. And super high level, a bunch of free agent signings. Love that. That's making the league a little bit more fun too. But Sam, I'll start with you, our resident goalkeeper. Steve Clark, you've had a lot of positives to say about him over the past few weeks and months. He goes to Houston. I mean, no head coach, but I mean,
I was about to say, I'm
sorry with the veteran.
Looking him up. Yeah, I'm looking him up like, oh, does Houston not have a head coach now? And the answer is no. They still
one of two teams still?
Who else doesn't have a coach? That's a bad look.
Vaughn, you know.
Vaughn's team has a coach. Ties defense because Houston has looked rough, and I really thought Tab Ramos was going to be it. So now I'm just all up in the air.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because Marco Maric, who was Tab Ramos' goalkeeper signing, he left. If I'm not correct, he left the club this offseason, and he is going to be moving on. So Steve Clark's your starting goalkeeper, and they really are building out a back line a little bit. Tim Parker, Teenage Hadabe, who they signed from the Turkish Super League, Daniel Steris, and I think they have one or two other kind of MLSC center backs who I like a lot. I guess, are they really building out from the back now? Like, Vaughn, like what did you make of this move? Kind of what are you taking on, Houston overall right now?
Houston's a team that needs to rebuild.
That plays soccer.
They are in the league. They need to change their entire organizational behavior, and it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. So I think that this is hey, you signed a 35-year-old goalkeeper that can start most of your games.
Yep. So at least it's a 35-year-old in the position that can start most of their games.
Yeah, and he's doing well, and he's not going to destroy the cap, and he's not going to be burning an international spot. And okay, great, like, cool. Steve Clark's going to be in between the pipes, and let's see where this team grows and develops in the next 18 months. With a new general manager, with the new coach, with new styles, with new patterns, with new development, with new actually maybe spending. There's a lot that has to happen in this organization to turn them around, really for all the Texas teams. There's a lot of work that has to happen there for them to really elevate where their status is in the MLS tiers. Right now, all the Texas teams are low. So Houston's got some work to do, and to me, this is a holdover signing.
I mean, look, I agree. Yeah. I think you could have worse options as a holdover goalkeeper until you find maybe a long
the guy who got them to the final
option. Yeah, I mean, look, I like Steve Clark a lot. I don't hate the move. And Vaughn, as you're going into the first off season with us, you're going to realize I get excited over a shit ton of moves that by the end of the 2022 season will have zero impact on anything. And it will just be stupid at that point. But
hey, it's a goalkeeper. He could stand on his head and get them
save
right
a lot
into
of
the
games.
Playoffs. Yep.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Real quick on Houston though too, like they like famously bad academy setup too, like no head coach, like also known to hang on to players too long when their value's higher. Like Houston's. This is pretty bad, right? Like I know you're just saying that, but I'm like, the more I think about it, they don't even have like they fall back on.
They turned Mauro Manotas and Albert Elise into Darwin Quintero and Tim Parker.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Hey, but Quintero resigned and he's not a BP anymore. That's a positive.
Cap space for more question marks.
For more average.
It's not great. Houston people. Remember when they were in like MLS or Western Conference Final just like 3 years ago?
More than that.
Classic. Well, they were playing I don't know, but they were playing Portland. That's all I remember.
They're not the Brad Davis Houston anymore.
Oh no, they are.
Oh, shout out Brad Davis,
they're the
man.
Darwin Quintero Houston.
34-year-old Sam Darwin Quintero. There you go.
Wasn't it Brad Davis and Brian Ching, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was the heyday. Like that was.
Oh yeah.
That was Houston.
Houston was great.
The Dom Kinnear Dynamo.
The Dom Kinnear Dynamo.
Love it.
Whatever happened to Dom Kinnear? That's awesome.
He's an assistant somewhere, I think.
San Jose?
The assistant. That sounds right.
San Jose.
Because I think we're all expecting him to take over for Almada at one point, weren't we?
He is the last. No, he is an available head coach. He was last an interim manager with the Galaxy in 2020. He's always He's always the caretaking. He's always the caretaker. He's always the caretaker. You know, I always feel like
the caretaker, never the head coach.
Yeah, always the caretaker, never the Bob Bradley. You know. All right, so Vaughn, I'll go to you. Is there a move from the past week that you see on the list that we have? Obviously, listeners and podcast watchers, you don't see a list in front of you. But is there a move on this list that interests you in a short conversation?
I mean, Roselle going back to Sporting Kansas City.
I'm sure you like that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to bring it up because, quite frankly, like they need to replace Ilie. And I don't think Jose Mauri is going to be that guy for same thing like we were talking about earlier, like for a whole season. So a guy that is, you know, Peter Vermes' Barcelona B. He's been there. He won an MLS Cup with Sporting Kansas City. I really felt he was being wasted on Orlando's roster behind Junior Urso and Sebastian Mendez. That was by far the best three pairing for like a defensive midfield group in MLS. And Uri Roselle, I think he's still only 30. Like he's still young. Like he should still have some in the tank. So yeah, I like it a lot because he's going to be able to step back in and knows the system. And I think he is a guy. He's somebody I actually was hoping was going to make it to Charlotte. Because I felt he was really undervalued and underused in Orlando.
Uri Roselle is 29 years old, and he has over 110 MLS games to his account.
Yeah, and an MLS Cup. Like he won MLS Cup.
Yeah, and he's won a Portuguese Cup too. But interesting. You know, honestly, I was gonna hate on this move because I thought Uri Roselle was like 35 at this point. Like he just seems like he's much older.
No, that's good.
But no, look, I like it. The same way that we can talk about Leggett going back to the Revs, or a move, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, Omar Gonzalez going to the Revs, all going back under a manager and Bob Bradley, who they had a lot of success under. I think Uri Roselle kind of going back home, going to SKC, going back to Peter Vermes, and a guy Vermes can trust as well, who knows how he plays and knows what he wants week in and week out. I mean, I like it. I think that's a good move then. So shout out Uri Roselle going back to SKC, because I didn't think that was going to be a good move.
And I wanted to mention this because Uri Roselle and Ben Sweat both going to Sporting Kansas City. There was a crazy stat that I did not realize, that the entire Sporting Kansas City roster, only 3 guys on the roster prior to Sweat and Roselle had been on another MLS roster. So we're talking about MLS experience. Number one. Can you think of number one?
Graham Zusi?
No.
He's always been on SKC.
He's always been with SKC.
Kyrie Shelton.
NYCFC had 56 appearances. The number 2 with 6 appearances for Chivas USA was Tim Melia.
Man.
I couldn't even believe, if you told me that, I wouldn't believe that there's still a Chivas USA active player in Major League Soccer.
There's a couple still, aren't there?
There is. No, there is, but like it's still shocking every time I hear it. I don't know why.
And then number 3 was Kendall Mcintosh, who'd been with the Timbers but never made an appearance. So like time in other MLS locker rooms, right? Like Sporting Kansas City was really, really devoid of like other locker room culture and anything. So getting these guys that have been in Orlando and have been a part of that winning culture, great. Ben Sweat going to NYCFC and Miami and Austin, great. Like I like that Sporting Kansas City is getting some guys that have been in other MLS locker rooms.
First, I got to give my guy Sweatinho a lot of love because I loved Ben Sweat when he came to NYCFC. He came to NYCFC from the NASL Tampa Bay Rowdies, and he was just so good. Like he can play both fullback positions. I think obviously he's a little bit more better of a left back than he is a right back, but I think he can play both positions well. I don't think you want Ben Sweat as your starting fullback on either side, but I think if you have him coming in as a spot starter, your first kind of fullback off the bench, however you want to view it, I love that move, and I think that's an awesome addition. Obviously, he tore his ACL last year. I mean, that's just rough. Like, you can't really avoid it. But if you can get him back healthy, I think Ben Sweat can eat up a ton of minutes for you in an MLS roster. So I like the move. Both the Uri Roselle, Ben Sweat moves a lot. Sam, is there anything that interests you on this list, or should we call it an episode?
I mean, real quick, before we call it an episode, I'd like to just say Ethan Finlay to Austin, I think is a good move. Yes. I really like that one. I think Austin needs a lot of help, but Ethan Finlay was very solid in Minnesota for a long time. And I think, every little bit helps, but they picked up a really, really good player. Honestly, I didn't watch enough Austin this year to be like, yeah, they really need this one winger, but they pulled away someone from a good Minnesota team. Was Minnesota in the playoffs last year, or was that the year before?
Yeah, no, they made it.
They were in the playoffs.
Portland.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, MLS seasons all run together, guys. So yeah, I don't know. I think Ethan Finlay to Austin is a good move for Austin. Tough move for Minnesota, who's going to have to find a way to replace him.
I like the move, right? Because I think Ethan Finley's a dude you want on your roster for any MLS club. I just don't know. And I know, Sam, you said you didn't watch a lot of Austin last year. And I'm not going to admit to, after the All-Star game, really catching a lot of Austin games. But I don't know if their main priority was getting another winger on that roster or another dude who can play wing or whatever it may be. I like Ethan Finlay a lot, brings a ton of MLS games, a ton of MLS experience, but they need people who can score. Ethan Finley's very good. He can score, but I don't think he is your 15-plus goal scorer on the year. So I don't know. That's just my take. Is I like the move. I like bringing him in, but you need to do more, and you maybe need to avoid signing another winger this offseason because you have a ton. Vaughn, any Ethan Finlay takes?
No, Ethan Finlay, he's MLS good,
serviceable.
He can have serviceable minutes and can contribute. So change of scenery. It's going to be interesting what Minnesota does to replace him. And for Austin, right? What was the big knock? It was offensive weapons, and they've addressed that. Is it going to be enough to take them to that next level? Don't think so. Not yet. But Ethan Finlay, good step in the right direction. Can I highlight two of the other moves quick?
Go for it.
Shane O'Neill to Toronto FC.
Yeah.
I think I saw some other people commenting, and if you had a straight up trade, Omar Gonzalez, Shane O'Neill, I think Shane O'Neill's a good, you'd be happy getting Shane O'Neill in that trade.
I think I'd take Shane O'Neill over Omar Gonzalez easily right now.
Right. So for Toronto, upgrade.
Yeah.
Success.
Absolutely.
For New England.
And for New England, for depth for having a guy that can come in and fill the role and knows the coach and has won with that coach.
Yeah.
Cool. Championship mentality. Great.
If Omar is your third or fourth center back, which that's what he looks like he's going to be on the Revs roster, then the Revs are only getting better. So shout out Bruce doing what he does.
And then the other guy that I wanted to highlight that is just a re-signing, but I think is massive for the league and massive for the team that re-signed him is Mauricio Pereira for Orlando City. Yeah. Pereira is super underrated, in my opinion. I think we just don't talk about him a lot because if Orlando was making that deep run into an MLS Cup, or he's a guy that could be in that same conversation that, if he stays healthy, could be the next Carlos Gil of this league. like I think very highly of Mauricio Pereira. And I think it would have been a massive loss if they weren't able to re-sign him. So I'm happy for the league and for Orlando City that he's sticking around.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I don't know if I fully agree if he's Carlos Hill level. I think he needs help around him for him to do what he does best, right? I think he draws a lot of attention, and I think he's a very good creator when, maybe the attention spread out to a Mueller, a Nani, a DK, kind of the tons of pieces that Orlando has, and they still have pieces, right? DK is still on the roster. Tesho Akindele is still on the roster. All for now, yes.
January's coming.
I feel like Orlando needs to kind of get that Nani replacement in. I would be interested to see who it is.
Not like another 35-year-old winger.
Yes, I'm not saying...
Like they replaced Taka, who was already really old, with Nani. They need to get someone younger.
I'm saying a player who can give you the same level of production or more than what Nani did. And Nani did a lot for Orlando City. Don't get me wrong. He did good. But I think Pereira will do well if he has a guy like Nani playing next to him.
That's what I'm saying. If he replaced Carlos Hill on the New England Revs,
he would do fun.
He would do very, very well. That's the point I'm making, is that in MLS, to be successful and have deep runs, you need to have your Zelarayan, your Heel, your Valeri, your Piatti, your Ladero, and Pereira is very, very close to that class. I think that if he was consistently healthy and consistently had the guys around him, and Orlando has flirted with that, almost there, almost not, almost really, really good, maybe not. Pereira could very easily work himself into that tier. He's not far off, and I think it would have been a massive position to fill in a very short window for Orlando if they didn't re-sign him.
Well, you are correct that Orlando City has been very close to being very, very good, but their expansion partners that year unfortunately became the very, very good ones first. Is all I want to say. That's all I want to say there.
I should have given my respect. I should have said Maxi Light, right? Maxi.
Yes, come on, please. Maxi Morales, because Maxi deserves his love, and I'll go on for another hour about it, but it's fine. If you guys want to hear that conversation, go listen to last episode 207, because Sam, Jason, and I broke down my love for Maxi Morales. But guys, it has been a pleasure podcasting with you tonight, and for everyone who listened and who watched, I appreciate it. I think we had a little bit of a technical error. There was some error screen popped up here, so I gotta look at that and see what's up with that. But for everyone who listened, everyone who watched, we appreciate you. We thank you. There should be one more episode next week. It might be a solo episode of me, because I don't want to take you guys away from your holiday, whatever's going on for you, and it might be super, super short, especially depending on the news that comes out. But thank you guys again. Thank you to Soccer 90. Also, thank you to Edit Time Outfitters, our sponsor there. But it's a great episode. We'll chat with you guys next week, and peace.